The galaxy had a rule older than memory. Power belonged to the first ones. The races who claimed the stars earliest controlled everything: trade lanes, weapons, planets, law, even history itself. They called themselves the Celestial Accord, 5 ancient civilizations so advanced they could move moons and silence suns. Then humans arrived. Late. No grand armada. No glowing fleets. No ancient wisdom. Just battered colony ships, patched engines, loud voices, and a habit of asking dangerous questions. The Accord laughed. We were smaller than the vain war clans. Poorer than the merchant houses of Solkar. Our technology looked primitive beside their living metal ships and gravity weapons. Our computers were slow. Our weapons used physical ammunition. Our cities still had weather. To them, humanity was a temporary inconvenience. A species that would either serve, or disappear. They tolerated us because Earth sat on the edge of an unstable region no one wanted. They sold us outdated machines, taxed our roots, mocked our diplomats, and called us the children of dust. We smiled and learned. We learned their languages. We learned their markets. We learned their pride. And most importantly, we learned their weakness. Because every ancient empire suffers the same disease. Comfort. They had machines for everything. Machines to think. Machines to fight. Machines to farm. Machines to repair. Machines to remember. For thousands of years, comfort made them soft. They no longer built systems to survive failure. They built systems that assumed failure would never come. Humans were different. We came from storms. From shortages. From wars. From broken engines repaired with wire and hope. From oceans that drowned the careless and deserts that buried the weak. We were not efficient. We were not elegant. But we adapted faster than anything in the known stars. That truth did not scare them. Until the Black Swarm came. No warning. No diplomacy. No mercy. Entire frontier worlds vanished in silence. Fleets were found hollowed from the inside, drifting without crews. Defense grids that had stood for centuries went dark in minutes. The ancient races panicked. For the first time in ages. The galaxy needed humanity. The first distress call came from the moon city of Halcyon. Then another from the mining belts of Dresk. Then 12 more in a single hour. Every message ended the same way: static, screams, silence. The Black Swarm did not invade like a normal enemy. They spread like disease. Their ships were jagged masses of bone-black metal that moved without engines and ignored every known law of physics. They did not negotiate. They did not occupy. They consumed. Worlds were stripped. Stations were emptied. Entire fleets vanished after reporting only one thing. They're inside the hull. The Celestial Accord responded the only way it knew how, with overwhelming technology. They deployed drone armadas guided by quantum mines. They activated planetary shields that could stop meteors. They fired antimatter lances powerful enough to crack continents. It did nothing. The swarm adapted faster than their algorithms. Drone fleets were hacked mid-battle and turned against their owners. Planetary shields became traps, sealing civilians inside with the creatures. Energy weapons passed through shifting black armor that learned from each strike. For the first time in 1,000 years, the ancient powers were losing. That was when they came to Earth. 5 delegates. 5 races. 5 species that once refused to let human ambassadors sit at their tables. Now they stood in silence beneath the flags of the United Earth Assembly. Their leader, Councillor Vila of the Vein, lowered his head. We request military assistance. The chamber erupted. Some laughed. Some cursed. Some demanded repayment for decades of insults. But Earth's commander never smiled. Admiral Elias Thorne stood from his seat, hands behind his back, eyes cold as winter steel. How many worlds have you lost? Vila hesitated. 17. How many civilians dead? Unknown. Thorne nodded once. Then he asked the only question that mattered. How close are they to human space? 3 jumps. The room fell silent. Thorne turned to the assembly. If they reach us after feeding on 17 worlds, we won't stop them here. He faced the alien delegates again. You should have treated us like allies years ago. Vila said nothing. Thorne's jaw tightened. But right now, pride is expensive, and extinction costs more. He pressed his palm to the command table. Earth enters the war. Within hours, human fleets launched. Not sleek silver warships. Not elegant machines. Heavy carriers plated in lead steel. Railgun destroyers that fired tungsten rods at impossible speed. Missile barges packed so full of explosives their hulls groaned. Boarding cruisers carrying soldiers trained for close-quarters brutality. The Accord watched in disbelief. Human designs were ugly, crude, loud, and terrifying. When the first battle began over Halcyon's corpse moon, alien admirals learned what adaptability looked like. Their drones tried to calculate optimal trajectories. Humans changed tactics every 30 seconds. Their targeting AIS predicted laser patterns. Humans shut off computers and fired manually. The swarm breached a carrier's hull. Human marines vented the entire deck into space, then kept fighting in vacuum suits. Losses were horrific. But for the first time, the Black Swarm bled. And across the galaxy, ancient races who once mocked humanity began whispering the same thing. Send the humans first. For 6 years, humanity carried the war on its back. We fought in asteroid graveyards where radar meant nothing. We fought inside burning stations where corridors ran red with molten steel. We fought on frozen moons where rifles jammed and men used knives. Every time the Celestial Accord's perfect strategies failed, they called us. Every time their elegant fleets broke, they sent humans to hold the line. And we did. At terrible cost. 3 million soldiers never came home. 17 colonies emptied their youth into recruitment transports. Earth's factories ran day and night until cities shook from the strain. But slowly, painfully, the Black Swarm began to die. Its hive ships were shattered one by one. Its breeding worlds were burned. Its final queen node was cornered above the shattered rings of Corvus. Admiral Thorne personally led the assault. When the last black vessel split open beneath railgun fire, the galaxy erupted in celebration. Church bells rang on worlds that had never heard bells. Alien capitals lit their skies in fireworks. Accord leaders announced a new age of unity. And humanity believed them. They invited our fleets to Primara Station, the largest diplomatic fortress in known space. There would be medals, treaties, a permanent human seat on the High Council, shared technology, equal status at last. The human fleet arrived damaged but proud. Thousands of ships drifted in formation around Primara's silver towers. Marines polished armor. Crews prepared uniforms. Captains rehearsed victory speeches. Then every celebration light on the station went dark. A cold signal flashed across every screen. All human vessels, power down immediately. Confusion swept the fleet. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Thorne stared at the message without blinking. Patch them through. The main display ignited. 5 figures appeared, leaders of the Celestial Accord seated above humanity as always. At their center sat Chancellor Vila. His face was unreadable. The Black Swarm is defeated, he said. The emergency alliance has concluded. Thorne's voice was calm. Then let's sign the peace. Vila's eyes hardened. There will be no peace with your species. Silence. Even the bridge crew forgot to breathe. Vila continued. During this war, we observed human behavior closely. Your casualty tolerance is abnormal. Your innovation under pressure is dangerous. Your population growth is unsustainable. Your military culture is destabilizing. He leaned forward. If allowed to remain armed, humanity will become the next galactic threat. A crewman whispered, after everything. Vila spoke the sentence that doomed his empire. Therefore, by unanimous vote of the Celestial Accord, all human fleets are to be disarmed. All colonies outside Sol system are seized. Earth will be restricted to one monitored sector under permanent supervision. Thorne's expression never changed. You used us. We survived because of you, Vila replied. Now we survive from you. Then the trap closed. Ion lances erupted from hidden platforms around Primara. Human ships convulsed as engines died. Docked vessels exploded before crews reached stations. Repair nanites gifted by the Accord months earlier activated inside human systems, shredding circuitry from within. Comms went black. Navigation failed. Weapons locked. Across 3 sectors, coordinated strikes hit human colonies the same minute. Fuel depots seized. Food convoys captured. Orbital elevators occupied. The Accord had prepared this for years. While humans bled in their war, they had built our cage. On the Retribution, alarms screamed crimson across the bridge. Engines offline. Reactor control compromised. External batteries surrounding us. A young officer looked at Thorne with panic in his eyes. Sir, what do we do? Outside the viewport, hundreds of Allied ships turned their guns toward humanity. Admiral Thorne slowly removed his gloves. Then he smiled. The smile unsettled everyone on the bridge. It was not the smile of a man who had accepted defeat. It was the smile of a man who had just been proven right. Admiral Elias Thorne walked to the shattered viewport and studied the enemy fleet surrounding them. Silver Accord battleships drifted in perfect formation. Drone frigates locked targeting grids. Boarding craft launched in neat disciplined rows. Beautiful. Predictable. Weak. He reached into an old brass locker bolted beside the command chair and removed a small wooden case. Inside rested a cigar from Earth. Real tobacco. Hand-rolled. A gift saved for victory. He lit it while the bridge alarm screamed. Several officers stared in disbelief. "Sir," Commander Hale said carefully, "we are moments from being boarded." Thorne exhaled smoke in a slow gray ribbon. "I know." "Then, with respect, why are you calm?" Thorne glanced at him. "Because now I don't have to pretend anymore." The bridge fell silent. 4 years, politicians had forced him to smile through insults, treaties, delays, quotas, inspections, and alien arrogance. He had shaken hands with species that called humanity primitive while begging us to die in their trenches. Now masks were gone. Now everyone could be honest. He turned toward the crew. "How many operational systems remain?" Chief Engineer Sarah Voss wiped grease from her forehead as sparks rained from an open panel. "Digital network is dead. Reactor throttled externally. Weapons slave to enemy lockouts." "But," she hesitated. "But what?" "The old emergency lines still exist." Thorne's eyes sharpened. "Manual?" She nodded. "Hydraulic controls. Mechanical relays. Hardwired backups from the original hull design. Nobody uses them." "Can they move the ship?" "Ugly and slow." "Perfect." He took another draw from the cigar. "Communications?" Signal Officer Reyes swallowed hard. "Main arrays jammed. Quantum channels spoofed. Internal routing compromised." "Shortwave?" Reyes blinked. "Sir, no one uses shortwave." "Exactly why I asked." Reyes ran to a side console, ripping off decorative panels. "Old antenna still mounted in Section C. Range is limited, but yes. I can broadcast." Thorne nodded once. "Good." He faced the main screen where Chancellor Vila still waited, expecting surrender. The alien leader frowned. "Admiral Thorne, respond. Power down your vessel immediately." Thorne stepped into view, cigar glowing in the dim red light. "You know what your problem is, Chancellor?" Vila's expression hardened. "You mistake restraint for weakness." "You are defeated," Vila snapped. "No," Thorne said quietly. "We were employed." He gestured to the disabled bridge. "You took our shiny systems. Congratulations." Then his voice dropped into iron. "But humans did not rise from paradise. We rose from mud, famine, storms, and war. We built civilization with fire and sharpened metal." He leaned closer to the camera. "When machines fail, we begin." Vila cut the transmission. "Probably wise." Thorne turned back to his crew. Some were still afraid. But now fear had competition. Hope. Dark, dangerous hope. He pointed at Sarah. "Wake the manual lines." At Reyes. "Broadcast on every obsolete frequency still legal, illegal, or forgotten." At Commander Hale. "Arm boarding lockers. Real ammunition." Then he placed the cigar in a tray beside the helm. "What message do I send, sir?" Reyes asked. Thorne looked through the viewport at the rich lights of Primara Station. "Send this to every surviving human ship." He smiled again. "The plan has changed." Reyes' fingers hovered over the keys. "And the new plan?" Thorne's eyes burned. "They stole our future." He straightened his coat. "So tonight, we take their everything." For the next 6 hours, the UES Retribution remained motionless. To Accord scanners, it was a crippled warship drifting among thousands of defeated human vessels. Its engines were dead. Its weapons offline. Its crew trapped and waiting for surrender. Exactly what they wanted to see. Inside the hull, humanity was waking up. Chief Engineer Sarah Voss crawled through maintenance shafts so narrow even service drones avoided them. Sparks snapped around her face as she tore open sealed wall panels untouched since launch day. Behind those panels lay something the Accord never respected. Copper. Steel. Pressure valves. Manual crank shafts. Physical wiring. No glowing interfaces. No smart gel circuits. No AI oversight. Just honest machinery built to function when everything else failed. Hydraulic line be restored, she shouted through a speaking tube. Port thrusters responding at 20%. Crew members across the ship repeated the same ritual. Men and women with grease-black hands turned wheels, pulled levers, swapped belts, and rewired motors by flashlight. No elegant commands. No voice activation. Just labor. Signal Officer Reyes sat cross-legged beside an antique radio rig assembled from spare parts, stripped speakers, and a coil wrapped by hand. The first burst of static nearly made him laugh. Then a voice crackled through. Ironclad receiving. Is this really retribution? Reyes grinned. About time. Hold dark and await orders. Another voice. Mining convoy Atlas online. Then another. Carrier Vanguard alive but angry. Then dozens more. Ships the Accord believed silenced were speaking through forgotten frequencies no advanced race bothered monitoring. Shortwave traveled ugly. Messy. Limited. But it worked. Admiral Thorne stood over a paper star chart spread across the command table. Paper. Another object alien empires considered decorative nonsense. Pins marked surviving human assets. Damaged frigates. Cargo haulers. Mining tugs. Civilian transports. Orbital refineries. Hidden depots never reported to the Accord. Commander Hale studied the map. Even combined, we're outgunned 100 to 1. Thorne nodded. In a fleet battle? Yes. He tapped a bright moon orbiting Primara's outer gas giant. But this isn't a fleet battle. Sarah emerged from a hatch covered in oil. Main engines can't run. But maneuvering thrusters and magnetic launch rails are alive. Enough for one strike. She smiled. If it's reckless. Good. Hale frowned. Target. Thorne tapped the moon again. Velo's fuel reserve. The largest emergency energy depot in the sector. Originally built for war contingencies. Currently storing confiscated human fuel reserves. Commander Hale stared. It's shielded by Accord AI batteries. Correct. It has orbital patrols. Correct. It's defended by 3 capital ships. Correct. Hale exhaled. So how do we take it? Thorne looked at him. We don't attack defenses. He slid a steel harpoon bolt onto the table. We attack assumptions. The crew exchanged glances. Thorne continued. The Accord designs systems to defeat hackers, lasers, drones, and elegant enemies. He tapped the harpoon. They have no doctrine for pirates. Sarah burst out laughing. Reyes looked up from the radio. Transmission complete, sir. Surviving ships await your command. Thorne nodded. Send fleet-wide order. Reyes began typing. No lights. No signals. No heroics. Follow Vector Black. He paused. Anything else? Thorne thought for a moment. Yes. Reyes waited. Tell them dinner is at Velo's. The attack on Velo's began without engines. That was the first reason it worked. The Retribution, along with 12 surviving human ships, drifted dark behind the shadow of Primara's gas giant. No reactor glow. No active radar. No navigation pings. Just cold metal and patience. Then, one by one, magnetic rails fired. Massive anchor spikes launched into space trailing braided steel cables. The spikes buried themselves in tumbling debris fields ahead, and human ships used motorized winches to pull themselves forward in silence. No flame. No heat bloom. No signature. The Accord sensors watched empty space while an angry fleet crawled through darkness like hunters through tall grass. By the time Velo's station appeared over the moon's horizon, humans were already inside the defense perimeter. It was beautiful. A tower of silver rings and crystal tanks stretching miles into the sky, filled with enough refined star fuel to power 1,000 warships. And every drop had once belonged to human colonies. Commander Hale stared through the viewport. We can still turn back. Thorne lit another cigar. Why ruin a perfect evening? Accord patrol craft finally noticed them. Warnings flooded every frequency. Unauthorized vessels identify immediately. You are in restricted space. Power down or be fired upon. Thorne waved a hand. Reply. Reyes cleared his throat. This is United Earth Recovery Services. The bridge crew tried not to laugh. We're here to collect overdue property. Then the enemy opened fire. Blue plasma lances screamed across vacuum. And missed. Human ships split formation violently, moving on manual thrusters with irregular bursts no targeting AI could predict. They rolled, drifted, braked, and pivoted like drunken knives. Now, Thorne said. Retribution's forward bays opened. No lasers emerged. Harpoons did. 6-meter steel bolts slammed into Velo Station's outer glass tanks with thunderous impacts. Clang. 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 Cracks raced through crystal walls. Fuel alarms howled. The station AI hesitated. Its programming knew how to repel missiles, boarders, EMP attacks, cyber intrusions. It had no response tree for industrial spears. Reel us in, Sarah shouted. Winches screamed. Human ships surged forward along the harpoon cables. Marines in heavy vacuum armor clipped on lines and launched across open space. They hit the station hull like raiders from ancient oceans. Commander Hale led the breach team. Thermite charges burned circles through sealed access doors. Molten metal sprayed into blackness. Inside, Accord security troops raised sleek pulse rifles. Then gravity vanished. Sarah grinned from engineering. I borrowed their stabilizers. The corridor became chaos. Alien guards floated helplessly, firing wild shots into ceilings. Human Marines, trained in zero-G boarding drills since childhood, moved like predators. Mag boots locked. Shotguns roared. Batons cracked helmets. Within 7 minutes, Velo's control room fell. Station secured. Hale reported, breathing hard. Thorne entered through the shattered hatch and looked around at rows of terrified technicians. Relax, he said. We're only stealing everything. The next hour was mechanical theft on a historic scale. Human engineers detached the primary fuel storage wing from the station core. Tow clamps locked. Thrusters fired. An entire section of Velos, millions of tons of fuel tanks, machinery, drones, and reserves, began sliding away into space behind the Retribution. By the time 3 Accord warships arrived, humans were already disappearing into the moon's dark side. All they found was half a station, screaming alarms, and giant white letters spray-painted across the remaining hull. Thanks for the gas. The raid on Velos changed everything. Until that night, the Celestial Accord believed humanity was broken, angry perhaps, but contained. A species with damaged ships, starving colonies, and no future beyond surrender. Then we stole an entire fuel station. Panic spread faster than war. Markets crashed on Solcar trade worlds. Insurance guilds suspended freight lanes. Military governors demanded emergency powers. And Chancellor Vila did the worst thing a frightened ruler can do. He overreacted. He declared every human vessel a pirate threat and ordered all 5 Accord races to mobilize full suppression fleets. Ports were sealed. Banks froze human accounts. Civilian districts were raided. Propaganda flooded every screen. Humans are thieves. Humans are animals. Humans must be pacified. Admiral Thorne watched the broadcasts in silence. Then he smiled. Good, he said. Now they'll centralize their assets. Commander Hale frowned. That helps us. It saves travel time. Strike 2, the bank. 3 nights later, the Interstellar Credit Vault on Arcturon Prime reported a routine sanitation inspection. No alarms. No weapons fire. No breach. At dawn, the vault doors opened to reveal every reserve chamber empty. Currency crystals gone. Debt ledgers copied. Ownership archives missing. Security footage showed only 6 cleaning staff pushing carts. Those 6 were human Marines. More damaging than the money was the message transmitted on every financial network 1 minute later. All human debts forgiven. All Accord interest rates now 99%. You're welcome. Trade riots began within hours. Strike 3, the fleet. Vila responded with force. 22 Accord warships were assembled over the shipyards of Meraxis to hunt Thorne personally. Elite crews. New command encryption. Anti-boarding protocols. Zero tolerance. They never fired a shot. At 0300 station time, maintenance drones entered every vessel for scheduled diagnostics. At 0305, hangar doors locked. At 0307, bridge crews were sealed inside restrooms, armories, storage bays, and officer lounges. At 0310, every warship powered up under new command authority. United Earth Temporary Management. Sarah Voss had spent weeks reprogramming stolen service drones. By sunrise, 22 Accord warships jumped to human space under their own engines. Vila reportedly shattered a ceremonial table. Strike 4, the Hunger War. Humiliated and desperate, the Accord moved to starve Earth. They controlled the food synthesizer worlds of Lyris Belt, where trillions of nutrient rations were produced daily. Thorne did not attack with battleships. He sent cargo freighters full of soil, seeds, mold spores, insects, and microbial cultures from Earth. Within 2 days, sterile synth factories clogged with roots, vines, nests, and living chaos. Production halted. Then systems mysteriously rebooted. Every dispenser across the Accord began producing only one meal. Extremely spicy human bean stew. Nothing else. Military barracks revolted first. Civilian protests followed. Even elite palaces smelled like peppers. The result? Fuel lost. Banks robbed. Fleets stolen. Food humiliated. The 5 ancient races who once ruled the stars now held emergency meetings about one species they used to mock. Humans. And Admiral Thorne, lighting a cigar in the war room, gave the next target. Enough warnings, he said. Now we take their government. The High Council of the Celestial Accord convened on Primara Station beneath its golden dome of law. 5 rulers. 5 ancient banners. 5 species that once decided the fate of worlds with signatures and smiles. Now they looked terrified. Fuel reserves were gone. Trade systems unstable. War fleets missing. Food riots spreading. And somewhere in the dark, Admiral Thorne was choosing his next joke. Chancellor Vila slammed both hands on the council table. We declare total emergency authority. All treaties with Earth are void. All human claims illegal. Any occupied asset is to be seized by force. A legal advisor trembled. Chancellor, many seized assets were originally human-owned before the war requisitions. Then erase the records. That sentence would become famous. Because the records were already gone. The chamber lights flickered. Screens across the dome turned black. Security drones froze mid-air. Doors sealed. A soft chime echoed through the hall. Then the main display came alive. Admiral Elias Thorne stood in a tailored black coat, cigar in hand, inside the council's own archive chamber. Behind him were shelves of treaties, title deeds, command keys, ownership ledgers, and constitutional originals. The legal spine of the galaxy. Vila rose in fury. How did you get in there? Thorne glanced around casually. You outsourced janitorial services. Behind him, human technicians wheeled crates full of documents and data cores. Sarah Voss appeared beside a central terminal. Funny thing about ancient empires, she said. You digitize everything, then keep one physical backup in the basement. Vila shouted for guards. No one came. Because outside the dome, every guard post had already been surrounded by the 22 stolen warships now hovering over Primara's skyline. Thorne opened a folder. Let's review. He read aloud calmly. Emergency Defense Pact, Year 212. Clause 88b, in the event of catastrophic failure of Accord logistics, the primary war contractor may assume temporary administrative control of member assets to preserve stability. The council chamber went silent. One minister whispered, primary contractor. Thorne smiled. Humanity. Vila's face drained of color. That clause was ceremonial. Most fine print is, Thorne replied. Until someone competent reads it. Sarah pressed a key. Every emblem in the chamber vanished. The 5 banners dissolved into static. Replaced by the blue-white seal of United Earth Administration. Doors unlocked. Human legal teams entered carrying tablets, files, and portable printers. No rifles. No armor. Lawyers. Commander Hale nearly laughed. Thorne continued. By authority of your own charter, due to systemic military collapse, financial insolvency, food disruption, and governance failure. He closed the folder. The Celestial Accord is suspended. Shock rippled across the room. You can't do this. Vila screamed. Thorne looked genuinely curious. Can't? He gestured upward. Outside the glass dome, human-controlled dreadnoughts rotated into firing position. Then toward the streets below, where civilians were already cheering because food convoys had resumed under human management that morning. Then back to the chamber. We already did. One by one, council guards removed their weapons and placed them on the floor. Not from fear. From practicality. The empire was over. By sunset, the High Council building became Sector 1 Administrative Center. Accord ministers were issued apartments, pensions, and audit schedules. Taxes were simplified. Trade routes reopened. Food distribution normalized. Bribes disappeared. For the first time in centuries, ordinary citizens noticed something unsettling. Government worked better with humans in charge. Vila remained seated long after everyone else left. "You took everything," he whispered. Thorne shook his head. "No." He looked out over the city lights. "We took responsibility." Then he turned toward the final matter. "And now we decide what to do with the people who betrayed us." The final meeting took place at sunrise. Not in a prison. Not in a courtroom. Not before an execution wall. Admiral Thorne chose the balcony of the former High Council Tower, where the rulers of the galaxy had once looked down on everyone else. Now they would look outward instead. Below, Primara was alive. Human engineers repaired transit rails beside vain mechanics. Solcar merchants reopened markets under fair tariffs. Former military warehouses were being converted into schools, hospitals, and public housing. For the first time in living memory, no species paid tribute to another. Chancellor Vila was escorted onto the balcony wearing a plain gray suit. No chains. No guards gripping his arms. No ceremony. He looked older than he had a week ago. Across the city, human dreadnoughts hovered silently in the morning haze. Vila stared at them. "So this is it," he said quietly. "Exile? Imprisonment? Public humiliation?" Thorne leaned on the railing. "Humans are practical." Vila said nothing. "We don't like prisons," Thorne continued. "Too expensive." A pause. "We don't like executions either. Dead men learn nothing." Vila turned slowly. "Then what is my punishment?" Thorne handed him a digital tablet. Vila read the first page. His eyes widened. "This is absurd." "It's policy." "You are reclassifying the Zul homeworld." "Correct." He scrolled again. "Nature Preserve, Cultural Tourism Zone, Civilian Stewardship Authority." His voice broke. "You're making us caretakers?" Thorne nodded. "Your people wanted to rule the galaxy. You can start by managing one planet properly." Vila's hands trembled. "You strip us of fleets, weapons, laboratories, and leave us gardeners." Thorne's gaze hardened. "We leave you useful." Below them, a massive shadow crossed the city. The crowd looked up and cheered. It was the UES Legacy, the first flagship built in captured Accord shipyards using alien physics and human imagination. Bigger than any dreadnought. Faster than any cruiser. Designed by engineers who once repaired mining tools with scrap wire. Vila watched it pass overhead in silence. Thorne continued. "Earth is now the central trade hub, the central archive, and the central defense world." He pointed toward the bustling streets below. "Your people will be paid fairly. Protected equally. Taxed reasonably." Then he gave the final twist of the knife. "And every tourist route to your world carries a 5% service fee." Vila closed his eyes. "You've humiliated us." "No," Thorne said. "We humbled you." He stepped closer. "We bled for you. We saved your worlds. You repaid loyalty with fear." His voice dropped to iron. "So we took the only thing you truly worshipped. Power." The Chancellor looked down at the crowds, species once divided now trading, laughing, rebuilding. No one saluted him. No one needed him. "And if we resist," he whispered. Thorne smiled faintly. "Then you'll miss the first shuttle group." Vila frowned. "What shuttle group?" "The students from Earth," said Commander Hale, approaching with a datapad. "They're arriving this afternoon to study ancient alien arrogance." Even Sarah laughed. Thorne lit one final cigar and looked out over the stars. The galaxy had once called humanity primitive. Now every warp gate, every treasury, every fleet route, every treaty line led through Earth. And for 10,000 years, alien parents would warn their children with the same sentence. Never betray a human. Because they won't just defeat you. They'll take your house, your job, your lunch, your history. And then charge admission to show it back to you.